back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, August 5th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about Tyreek Hill's new deal. He was desiring a new contract, and he got it. So he's actually the latest, Dolphins player that's gotten paid. We had Jalen Waddle get a new contract, Tua recently, and now Tyreek Hill getting his contract as well. So we'll get into that. In the second part of the show, we'll talk about some news around training camp, some more injuries that I wanted to get into. So I'll talk about that as well in the second part of the show. In the third part of the show, we'll talk about Justin Jefferson. How the Vikings are going to manage him, him working his way back. Well, he did come back last year from his hamstring injury, but, he had some comments about it, and I wanted to get into it, and also how the Vikings are managing him as we get closer to the regular season, as we're a little over a month out. So we'll talk about that. In the fourth part of the show, we'll talk about Jalen Johnson, the cornerback of the Bears, talking about the top 100 list from NFL Network. So we'll get into that. He had some things to say on it. And then in the final part of the show, I will do my final running back rankings. Today we'll be doing the AFC West, which I'll be honest is kind of hard. Those rankings are kind of hard to do. Just because I'll explain when we get to it, but it's just I feel like that running back group in that division is kind of hard to rank, just because you have a couple of teams that are going to have new starting running backs. One of them, I know is going to be good, one team, but then there's another team I'm just not really sure. So we'll get into all that when I get to it. But I just that division was kind of hard to rank. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about Tyreek Hill's new deal. So like I said, he was looking for a new deal, and it's kind of interesting because I remember he was talking about retiring possibly soon in a couple of years. Maybe that's still possible, but right now he doesn't look anywhere near retirement the way he's been playing, especially since he's gotten to the Dolphins with, the stats that he's put up with Tua. Now, I think he should have stayed in Kansas City with Mahomes, but, he wanted to get paid. So, he ended up getting dealt to Miami. But this is what he did last year. And the last 2 years, he's put up 119 receptions. Last year, 1,799 yards. He would have got 2,000 yards if he didn't get hurt, and then he had 13 touchdowns, of course. Just an impressive season for him. And so his new contract, so he agreed to a new deal worth $90 million over the next 3 seasons. The deal includes $65 million in guaranteed money. The adjusted deal does not add new years to his existing contract, but increases his total guaranteed money to $106.5 million. So that's the specifics of the deal. And he previously had a 4-year, $120 million contract signed in 2022 after being traded from Kansas City to Miami, which I brought up. The previous contract had a $30 million per year average, making him one of the highest paid receivers. And again, like I said, they also extended Jalen Waddle with an $84.75 million contract over the next 3 years. And the new deal with Hill helps manage the team's cap space while keeping both top receivers happy. So, yeah, I mean, that's, they satisfy him. And look, I mean, I think we all expect Tyreek Hill to go out there and put up big numbers once again. Like I said, if he didn't end up getting hurt late in the season against the Titans, probably finishes with 2,000 yards. But fell a little bit short of that. And he actually was number 1 on the top 100 this year, which I don't disagree with. I mean, we'll get into the top 100 and why I think it's a little silly, but when we talk about Jalen Johnson, but I really don't have a problem with Tyreek Hill being at number 1, because when he was healthy, I mean, it was between him and Christian McCaffrey for MVP, in my opinion. It last year should have been the year. I keep saying it, but I'm going to keep hammering it home that last year was the year to give it to a non-quarterback, the MVP. Now that ended up not happening, but that would have been the year to do it. That really would have been the year to do it. But it just ended up not happening. So, and I don't have a problem with Lamar Jackson winning MVP, but again, I would have liked to have seen a non-quarterback take it home. But that just didn't happen. So, but I mean, for the Dolphins this year, I mean, I know that they're a team that has a lot of talent, and I know I've brought up the fact that there was that huge debate in our production meeting over Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa. Tua. I mean, I think with the weapons around Tua, he's going to have another solid year. But you're hoping that he takes another step forward, and that the Dolphins can beat some of these better teams that they had a problem with last year, and maybe they win a playoff game. That's really what it comes down to, because they got off to a hot start last year, and then, you played against some of these better teams, and they struggled. And they had a chance to get the 2 seed, and they lost that. They got swept by Buffalo. So, and I expect this team to be in the mix. If you watched my AFC East rankings, you know that I had the Dolphins at 3. And again, you can understand, like, my reasoning behind it, you can understand it, but there's a lot of people that disagree with it just because, the Bills, they did lose some pieces. And then the Jets, well, the Jets have a lot of talent, but they got to prove it. The Dolphins, last couple of years, they've made the playoffs. The Jets haven't made the playoffs since 2010. So, I get it. But the Dolphins are going to be in the mix. And one of the reasons for that is this guy right here, Tyreek Hill, who is one of the best receivers in the NFL. And you can argue he is the best receiver in the NFL. He's a top 3 receiver. Right now, he's a top 3 receiver. Just what he's able to do. And again, expect him to have another big year. Let's see if he stays healthy the full season. Can he get to 2,000 yards? I think so. But only time will tell. Only time will tell. But once again, another receiver gets paid, and we're still waiting on CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Ayuk. And there seems to be no real movement right now. But I know I keep saying it. I do think, CeeDee Lamb's going to get his contract before the season starts. And Brandon Ayuk, I really don't know. At this point, I just don't know. But we had a lot of receivers get paid this offseason. If receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, they all got paid. And we'll see how a lot of these guys play under these new contracts. Are they going to live up to their contracts? Like, we know Tyreek Hill with this. I mean, Tyreek Hill, when he plays, he's going to put up big numbers. So he's going to live up to his contract. But, some of these quarterbacks, we go over to the quarterback side, getting $55 million a year. Are you going to be able to live up to that? We'll see. The money that gets tossed around is just unbelievable in the NFL. It really is. But that's a sport for you. It's a machine. So, but let me know what you guys think though about the new deal for Tyreek Hill. How do you feel about it? What kind of season do you think he's going to have? I mean, I think we all know that if he stays healthy, he's going to have a huge year. He's going to have a huge year. And, the Dolphins, their offense is fun to watch when it's clicking. Because they just got so many track stars on this team. Between him, Waddle, the running backs, Mostert and Achane. They added Odell Beckham Jr., who, is past his prime, but as a number 3 receiver on the team, I don't think that's a bad move that they made, and I feel like he could contribute a little bit. But yeah, his best days are behind him. Yeah, the Dolphins' offense is fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch once again, but how are they going to do against these better teams? That's really what it comes down to for me. And Tyreek Hill helps that out. So we'll see. But that's really my thoughts on Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins. Again, let me know what you guys think about the deal and how you think Tyreek Hill is going to perform this season. So we're going to take our first break of the show. Then when we come back, we will talk about some headlines around the league here in training camp, some injuries, and some other news. We'll get into all that. So make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about, some headlines around NFL training camp, with several different teams, some injury updates, things like that. So let's get into it. So first team is the Carolina Panthers. So their young receiver, first-round rookie Xavier Legette, suffered a lower leg injury during practice. Sunday's practice. Now, x-rays were negative, but he'll undergo an MRI. The injury is unrelated to his previous hamstring injury, so we'll keep an eye on that. And that's someone that's looking to make an impact on this team. Again, being a first-round receiver, they added him. They also added Deontay Johnson. So they're hoping with those two, and of course with the offensive line, adding to that this offseason, and also drafting Jonathan Brooks as well, the rookie running back. They're hoping that with all of this, that Bryce Young can have a better season. Also, they did, they have a new head coach in Dave Canales, who did a nice job with Tampa Bay, helping out Baker Mayfield revitalize his career in Tampa. So they're hoping that they can get similar results to that with Bryce Young. Now, I mean, the Panthers I really haven't talked about that much this offseason, but when I'm kind of expecting another losing season, but you're really hoping for that big jump for Bryce Young in year 2, because last year was pretty rough. Now, it was not all his fault, but they're hoping that he can make a big leap, because if not, the Panthers got a problem on their hands. But they at least have made moves to try to put him in a better situation. Also, another injury with the Panthers. Now, I did see that Jonathan Brooks, their rookie running back who I brought up, it seems like he's going to make his return around week 3, week 4 during the season, recovering from his ACL injury. So there's that. But also, backup quarterback Andy Dalton has a quad injury. They signed Jake Luton, who made some starts with Jacksonville back during COVID. I think it was. I know he definitely made one start. I don't know. He might have made a couple, but he was with Jacksonville. I remember that. He's been with 7 NFL teams and had multiple stints on Carolina's practice squad in 2023. So they bring him in while Andy Dalton recovers from his quad injury. Then we move on to the Browns. So Myles Garrett was not practicing, but he did participate in his first summer training camp practice. Did full-speed pass rushing drills after Friday's practice. So he's good to go. Elijah Moore is working through a concussion protocol, although it's not confirmed if he has a concussion with the Browns. So that's a couple things with the Browns. Justin Watson was injured. He returned to practice. Kadarius Toney is banged up. He was taking snaps out of the backfield. They're trying to, work him as a running back. So, we'll see what ends up happening there. But I just feel like at this point with Kadarius Toney, he's kind of just phasing himself out, because it's just last year. I mean, the drops were a problem, and did not play in the Super Bowl. Well, he didn't play in the playoffs at all. Like, he was. Right? I don't think he played in the playoffs at all. But either way, I mean, he didn't play in the Super Bowl. And the year before that, I mean, he had that big punt return against the Eagles that set him up, and he scored a touchdown in that Super Bowl against the Eagles. But it has not worked out in Kansas City. And I think, I mean, we'll see if anyone else picks him up, if the Chiefs were to move off of him. But, I mean, if it doesn't work out with the Chiefs, I mean, who's it going to work out with then? But that's one of the problems with him, is he has not been able to stay healthy. So he's banged up. Nick Bolton, one of their linebackers, is banged up. Justin Reed as well. But again, I mean, we still got ways to go. So, but that's just what happens. Guys got to get a little banged up. John Gruden actually also made an appearance at one of their practices. He's been out of the league since 2021 because of, off the field stuff. The Raiders had to let him go. I'm not going to get into it, but he was at practice for the Chiefs. Also, moving on with the Chargers. So, Joey Bosa of the Chargers left Sunday's practice with a left hand or wrist injury. Has been limited to 14 games over the past 2 years due to injuries. He accepted a pay cut to stay with the Chargers this offseason. Yeah, that's a problem. And, when Joey Bosa's healthy, he can, he can take over a game. But, if you're not on the field, that just hurts your team. But he took a pay cut because he wanted to stay with the team. I mean, Khalil Mack is still with the Chargers as well. They still got guys on this defense, and but the defense was pretty bad last year. But you're hoping that with Harbaugh taking over, that the defense is a little better. So, yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that, I guess a little surprised that they would have kept, these older guys on defense as opposed to maybe trying to. I mean, Mike Williams, I was fine with them moving off of him, but I still think that the Chargers should have tried and kept Keenan Allen. Just so at least you have. I mean, I know Joshua Palmer's there, and I know Quinn Johnson's going into his second year, but Quinn Johnson was not very good last year. And, Joshua Palmer's kind of like a number 3 receiver. So, I mean, if you would have kept Keenan Allen, at least you would have had, like, your top guy still there with the younger guys that they brought in through the draft as well. But they decided to move off of the offensive guys and, keep the defensive guys. But you got to keep some guys on defense, even though the defense, like I said, was not very good last year. Actually, and another big injury, too. So Puka Nacua left Sunday's practice with a knee injury. He returned with a bag of ice around his knee. He did not participate further in practice. So, I didn't see anything that said he got carted off, but that's something to keep an eye on. I mean, last year he was unbelievable. I know I talked about him recently, when talking about the Rams. They say Cooper Kupp looks really good. So that's really encouraging. But now, of course, when you see that, now you see, Puka Nacua gets injured. So, yeah, that's not a good sign, but it doesn't seem like it's too serious. So, but that's just something that we'll have to keep an eye on. Rashid Shaheed of the Saints, he missed his second consecutive practice due to a hamstring injury. But it doesn't seem to be that major because Dennis Allen was saying he hopes that he could practice soon. So, he's kind of the number 2 receiver right now. I mean, you got Chris Olave and then, question marks. And, Shaheed, not only can he be a receiver, but, he's a guy that can return kicks as well. He could play a factor with those new kickoff rules. So that's another injury. Evan Neal is still injured at the moment due to his recovering from ankle surgery. But yeah, he'll be sidelined through the first preseason game. And, the Giants, obviously, they brought in a few offensive linemen now. They recently signed Greg Van Roten because Illuminor got hurt too. Jermaine Illuminor, who they also brought in. But, yeah, so Evan Neal is going to be out for that first preseason game. And, yeah, right now it's not looking like a good pick from Joe Shane with how his career has gone so far. With the Eagles, just, some minor injuries. Mekhi Becton, who they signed, he didn't practice, but he was dealing with an illness. Tyler Steen, the starting right guard, right now is sidelined due to an ankle injury. Paris Campbell, who they brought in, he's dealing with a groin. So, I mean, again, nothing, doesn't seem like major things going on there, but for the Steelers, though, Russell Wilson is back at practice. And, we still got to keep an eye. And Justin Fields looks good from what I'm seeing. So it's going to be interesting how that competition plays out between those two guys. And I've said all along, I think they should lean towards starting Russ. And then, if he doesn't play well, then you go to Fields. But if Justin Fields, shows that he could be the starter, then the Steelers could do that. They could say, you know what, he's going to start from day one. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And then also, with the Commanders, the last thing I'll bring up, Jane Daniels will start the first preseason game for the Commanders. Expected to start over Marcus Mariota when they play Tampa in the regular season opener, which we all kind of figured that. But yeah, he will be playing, I think it was against the Jets they're going to be opening up against for the preseason. So we'll get to see his first game action. So that's going to be exciting. That's going to be something that we'll have to talk about when we get to it. Because we got a full slate of preseason games this week, which I'm excited about. That gives us more things to talk about. Because we have 2 games. We got 2 games on Thursday. Yeah, I got 2 games on Thursday, 3 on Friday. Then we got a handful on Saturday, and then we have 2 on Sunday. So, yeah, I'm excited. I mean, again, it's preseason, and the starters are not going to be playing, or at least most of them are not going to be playing. But you know what? It's football, so I'm excited because again, it's going to give us stuff to talk about. How certain players did. Like we'll talk about Jaden Daniels' debut. We'll talk about that, and if some of the other rookie quarterbacks make their debut, we'll talk about it. There's going to be a lot to talk about, which I'm excited for. So before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about Justin Jefferson and the Vikings. How the Vikings are going to how the Vikings are planning on managing Jefferson throughout training camp, and just talk about some comments that Jefferson had about the injury that he suffered last year, his hamstring injury. So that's what we'll get to when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're just going to talk about a couple things regarding the Vikings. We're going to talk about how they're planning on managing Justin Jefferson, and just some comments from Jefferson recently on, the injury that he suffered last year. So I want to get into that and give you my thoughts on it. So the Vikings are being cautious with Jefferson returning to practice to avoid re-injuring his hamstring. And Jefferson was given a day off from practice on Wednesday, aligning with the team's schedule off day on Thursday. So this is, last week. Jefferson tore his right hamstring last season, causing him to miss 7 games. He played in 97% of the Vikings' regular season snaps before the injury occurred in Week 5, and that was against the Chiefs. And Jefferson and the team are taking significant steps to ensure he does not re-injure the hamstring. Jefferson is working on strengthening his hamstrings and implementing new routines to support his overall health. Now, I wanted to get into what he had to say. Kevin O'Connell emphasized that the team wants to ensure Jefferson's progression in training camp is optimal for his physical shape and readiness. And, Jefferson is, concerned because, he just doesn't want to get hurt again. I mean, this is what he said. He said, "I'm so scared for it to happen again that I've been overly cautious about it. Just trying to take care of my body in the right way, just trying to find new things that I can implement in my day-to-day life that can get better, help me throughout the season. I've definitely been working on my hamstrings a little bit more, making sure that I'm injury-proof." He said he learned a lot about his body during last season's ordeal. This is what Kevin O'Connell said. And the Vikings are trying to avoid pushing him in the danger zone this summer. "We want to make sure his training camp progression is the right kind of progression coming off of the first time for him having the type of injury he had. It's more a matter of the dialogue that he has with the Vice President of Player Health, and performance Tyler Williams and myself, and making sure that our plan for him as we progress forward through the month of August has him in his prime optimal physical football shape and ready to roll, while also still tactically getting him prepared. That's also what they had to say. And then Jefferson said, I'll get to the point where I feel like I'm not going to think about it again, just because I feel like I'm going to push it to where it's way strong enough for it not to happen again. It's all about having the confidence in it, and I can go out there and play freely. And yeah, Jefferson, still finished with over 1,000 yards last year. It played really well when he was on the field, and even when Kirk Cousins wasn't on the field. I mean, he still had some big games. When Nick Mullins playing quarterback. So, and I expect him, even with J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold, and if Nick Mullins has to play, which I think if you're a Vikings fan, you hope that's not the case, Jefferson's going to have a big year. It doesn't matter who's going to be throwing him the ball. Jefferson is going to have a big year. But, I think it's concerning to hear a player, talking about that they're scared of getting hurt again. Because I'm pretty sure when I was watching receiver, Jefferson said, like, he was never hurt. Even going back to, his days before the NFL, in college, and, he was never hurt. And this is all new to him. But I hate to say it because it annoys me, but it's part of the game. Injuries are going to happen. So you could take all the measures that you want, and you could try a new routine and diet differently, things like that. But unfortunately, injuries are inevitable. Now, I'm not saying that Jefferson's going to get hurt again this year. I hope he doesn't. But they happen. They happen all the time, no matter what. And it might not be, and especially in a sport like football, it might not be because of you. It could be another player, how they tackle you, and your leg gets caught underneath somebody. So you could take all the precautions you want. Now, this was kind of a freak injury that happened. But, yeah, I mean, like I said, you get tackled by another player, and they tackle you the wrong way, and part of your body gets caught underneath the wrong way. That's another way of getting hurt. So, now I give Jefferson a lot of credit, trying different things, making sure that, he avoids this. But like I said, guys still end up getting hurt. So, and for the Vikings last year, I really would have loved to have seen what would have happened if Kirk Cousins doesn't get hurt. And, Jefferson came back with him still playing. Because I think the Vikings, they looked like they would have made the playoffs if Kirk Cousins doesn't get hurt. I mean, it looked like they were going to make the playoffs with Josh Dobbs. And then he kind of got figured out, and that was the end of it. You had Jaron Hall and you had Nick Mullins playing. I would have loved to have seen what the Vikings were going to do, but that didn't happen. And now they're kind of in a... It's interesting because I like the Vikings roster. I do. But I don't think they're going to have a good year because of the quarterback situation. Now, J.J. McCarthy's a rookie, and he, is not going to start right away. And Sam Darnold, I mean, over the course of a full season, I mean, I don't know. Again, the Vikings have a good team, but I don't know if they're going to win a lot of games with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold got off to a good start a few years ago with the Panthers. They started off 3-0, and we're like, wow, Sam Darnold not on the Jets anymore. Look what he's doing. And then he ended up, not playing well, especially when Christian McCaffrey got hurt that year, and that was it. But I mean, I think Sam Darnold can win you games, just not a lot. Just not a lot of games. And I'll get to see Sam Darnold right away to start the year when I go and see the Giants play against them in Week 1 at MetLife. So I'll get to see Jefferson, which that's going to be awesome, seeing one of the best receivers in the NFL up close. Him and Malik Neighbors on the other side, the rookie receiver from LSU, two LSU guys. Obviously not directly going at it. But, maybe Jefferson gets a touchdown, maybe Neighbors gets a touchdown. We see, that could be fun. But that's going to be exciting to see Jefferson playing live when I go. But, yeah, I mean, right now, I rank the Vikings last in the division. I think the other 3 teams are better. But only time will tell. And, Jefferson is going to be, of course, a big part of it. If the Vikings are going to have any success this season. But like I said, I like their team. They got Jefferson, they got Addison, they got Hawkinson, Aaron Jones they signed. And Aaron Jones they're going to rely on a lot. That running game's got to be effective. If the quarterback's struggling, at least you're going to have a good running game to back him up. With him, Ty Chandler, who's going to be the backup. But for me, like I said, I think the Vikings right now you look at them as the last place team. So, but yeah, I mean they're trying to be careful with Jefferson. And when he came back, like I said, he had some big games. Like at the end of the year, I mean, he had 170 yards receiving, and he only played in 12 games. So could you imagine he plays in every game? Kirk Cousins doesn't get hurt. What kind of season he's going to have? He's going to have close to the numbers that Tyreek Hill had, 1,799 receiving yards. Probably have around the same. But now, Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy, that's who's going to be throwing him the ball. But like I said, he's one of those receivers, I don't think you got to worry about it, who's throwing him the ball. He's going to get his. He's going to put up big numbers. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited to see him back out there. And I hope that all the work that he's putting in to avoid more hamstring injuries, I hope that pays off. And you gotta appreciate when players, kind of change things about them. They add these new routines because they just want to avoid injuries. Because this is their whole life. And they want to be out there. Because I know some players get, criticized. Oh, they get hurt all the time, and they just don't seem like they care. But when you have guys that are willing to, change certain things, their diet, their routine, just so they, so they can avoid injuries. You got to appreciate that because like I said, this is their whole life, and they want to be out there and play and be there for their teammates. And Jefferson, is looked at as a veteran now, because when you have when J.J. McCarthy eventually takes over, you're his veteran receiver, and I know he's been, at least what I was reading, he was kind of taking him under his wing, trying to guide him. Because there's going to be an adjustment period. And I know J.J. McCarthy is, there's mixed feelings on J.J. McCarthy. People think he's going to be very good. There's people that don't think he's going to be very good. I really have no idea. I just know that, he did hand the ball off a lot at Michigan. And Michigan is a very good college team. And they just won the national championship last year. So, and it's going to be different now with Michigan because McCarthy's not there, Harbaugh's not there. It's going to be different. But now with McCarthy in the NFL, it's a passing league. You got to be able to throw the ball, and if you don't, you're going to be left behind. And he's got a strong arm, and he's smart, but that has to translate now to the NFL. And if it doesn't, the Vikings are going to have to find somebody else. And they're hoping they don't, because you have a team right now in place that can win right now. It's really going to come down to the quarterback play. So it might not be this year, but, if J.J. McCarthy shows that he's the guy early on this year, if he does take over, then they're in good shape. And then you see how it goes the following year. But, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting how it all plays out. But it starts with Justin Jefferson being healthy, because they need him. Now, they won some games without him last year, but you want to have this guy on the field for the whole year. So we're going to take our next break. Let me know what you guys think about what kind of season you think Jefferson's going to have. And when we come back, we will talk about Jalen Johnson of the Bears. So we'll get into more on the NFC North and talk about some comments that he made on the NFL's top 100 list after that has concluded now. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about cornerback Jalen Johnson of the Bears. Just some comments that he made recently about the NFL's top 100 list that came out. I don't believe he was on the list. Now, he said that he was snubbed. So he wasn't on the list. He was snubbed from the top 100 players list. And he told reporters that it was BS and disrespectful that he was not included. He said he doesn't know how you make the Pro Bowl, All-Pro, and not a top 100 guy. He continued, he said, I could have been 101. Aaron Rodgers didn't even play in the season he was voted in. And here's the thing, okay? Now, I agree with what he says about the top 100. Now, the top 100 is silly. It really is. Now, it's voted by the players. It's not really meant to be taken seriously, in my opinion, because there have been years. Now, no disrespect, but there was the year when Peyton Manning got hurt for the Colts. He was out the whole season, didn't play, and the Colts finished with the worst record in the league. They got the number 1 pick. They got Andrew Luck. Peyton Manning was on that list. And he did not play a single snap. Now, Aaron Rodgers at least played, some snaps, if you even want to say that. Peyton Manning didn't play at all. And he made it on the list. And it's just, I don't know how you interpret, well, I kind of know how you interpret this list. Because it just goes from the previous, it's the previous year, but it's just, it's a silly list. It really is. But I agree with him. This is a guy that made the Pro Bowl, All-Pro, and he's not even on it. It should be who makes an impact on the season, and they should be on it. It shouldn't be someone that only plays 4 snaps. But that's not how it is. But like I said, it's not really meant to be taken seriously. Now, you had Patrick Mahomes. I think he finished as the number 4 player, because you had Tyreek Hill, you had Christian McCaffrey, you had Lamar Jackson ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Now, Christian McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill had unbelievable years. Lamar Jackson won the MVP. But Patrick Mahomes did win the Super Bowl. Now, in terms of the full season, how did Patrick Mahomes play? Patrick Mahomes did not play up to his high, his level during the regular season. But when we got to the postseason, it was completely different. He played like Patrick Mahomes when we got to the big games. But in terms of the full season, yeah, I don't really see. That should have been what the MVP voting was. It should have been Tyreek Hill or Christian McCaffrey at 1, and vice versa at 2, and then Lamar Jackson at 3. One of those two guys should have won the MVP. I'm bringing it back again. But that's just, it's the players. The players are the ones that make the list. And I get the frustration, but like I said, I wouldn't be that frustrated over it, really. Because it's a list that, it's fun to watch it and, see the highlights of the players that make it. Although I really haven't paid attention to it in recent years. But it's pointless. You know what it is? It's a popularity contest. That's what it is. Now, I know there's some validity to it. But, for the most part, it's just, there's no point in even doing it. But it goes to show you also why I do not like rankings lists. I don't. They're hard to do. And you're always going to make someone... You're not going to make everybody happy. So every year, this is going to continue. No matter what you do, you're not going to make them happy. You're not going to make people happy. Now, Tyreek Hill was the number 1 player. Have no problem with that. When he was healthy, he was unbelievable. And Christian McCaffrey, of course, was unbelievable last year. So I get why people are like, well, why is Mahomes not number 1 when they won the Super Bowl? There have been years when the quarterback's won a Super Bowl, but he's not number 1. But again, it should not be taken that seriously. So I get Jalen Johnson's frustration, but it's not something that he should be that upset about, in my opinion. Because this list is just, I just don't think it should be taken that seriously. Again, it's more content for the NFL to put out there, and you could discuss it. It creates discussions. But and I know there was people again upset over Myles Garrett being ranked over T.J. Watt. There's a debate going on about that. Max Crosby being in the top 10, I know that has sparked up a lot of controversy. Max Crosby is a very good player, but is he a top 10 player? And it's just, it's just hard when you're ranking all these different players because they all play different positions. That's another thing too. It's hard. It's just hard to rank in general. But especially when you got tackles and cornerbacks and linebackers and quarterbacks and receivers and running backs. It's hard. How are you supposed to do that when they all play different positions? Now you can, by their impact. There's ways you could do it, of course, because people have been doing it for years. But it's hard when you got guys that play different positions. I don't know. That's just me, though. But you know what? That's good. This is gonna. You know what? Jalen Johnson may be upset about this, but this should give him more motivation to say, you know what? I'm going to go out there and have a really good year and show everybody I deserve to be on this list next year. Use it as motivation. Now, as for, putting players on there that just did not play basically the whole year or the whole year, I think Aaron Rodgers should not have been on the list. Now, he makes the list because he's Aaron Rodgers, because it's a popularity contest, but he should not be on the list because he did not play last year. He basically didn't play. He played 4 snaps. But he should not have been on it. And even Peyton Manning shouldn't have. Now, it makes sense why Peyton Manning was on it. Now, like, with the Jets, we didn't really know what to expect with Aaron Rodgers. Like, I guess we expect them to be better than 7-10, but it was still unknown. With Peyton Manning, the Colts were a playoff team every year with him. And then the year he gets hurt and then when he doesn't play the whole year, and they end up finishing with the worst record in the NFL, it kind of makes sense why, he's on the list. Because that just shows you, like, look what happens when he's not there. But I don't know. I think you should leave the players that did not play at all off the list. Peyton Manning, I guess you give it an exception, but yeah, I mean, it's Peyton Manning, it's Aaron Rodgers, like, but they really shouldn't. Aaron Rodgers really should not have been on the list. And you guys know me. I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan, but in terms of the top 100 from just last year, he should not have been on the top 100 because 4 plays. That's it. That's where the popularity contest comes in. So it is a valid point by Jalen Johnson, but you know what? Like I said, use it as motivation. Go out there this year, play at a high level, help the Bears get to the playoffs for the first time in a while. Well, not really. I mean, 2020 was the last time they made it. I mean, it was kind of forgettable because, it's a COVID season and, they were one and done. They lost to the Saints. But, help the Bears get to the playoffs again. And, show that you belong in that top 100 list if it bothers you that much. So, I mean, that's just that's my opinion on it. I don't think it's something to be that upset about, but I get it because you have a guy that really didn't play that's on the list and you're not. So, that's really my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think, though. How do you feel about the NFL Top 100? Listen, they've been doing it for years. I not really a big fan of it because it's not really a fair ranking. But, I don't really, it is what it is, So, that's really my thoughts on it. But, yeah, I mean, let's actually, you know what, before we go to break, let's look up Jalen Johnson's stats from last year. Because I know, because I brought up him getting his contract this offseason. So last year, he had 4 interceptions, 36 combined tackles, 1 forced fumble. Yeah, so he's tied for 7th in interceptions last year. 10 passes deflected. 31 solo tackles, 5 tackles with an assist. Had a pick 6. Yeah, I mean, had a solid year last year for the Bears. He played in 14 games last year. So, let's see what he does this year. I mean, look, the Bears are a team, a lot of eyes are going to be on them with all the talent they got. And, we'll see. We will see how it goes. I'm looking forward to watching them. And the defense. I mean, the defense played better towards the end of the year as well. So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep an eye on them. And Jalen Johnson, like I said, use it as motivation. So, so that's basically my thoughts on this topic. When we come back from our final break of the show, we will conclude by ranking the running backs in the AFC West. Now, this will be the final rankings that I do for running backs. So, and I honestly thought it was kind of hard because, again, I'll explain why when we get into the the final segment. I did a little bit at the top of the show, but that's what we will do when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to rank the running backs in the AFC West. So let's get into that. And like I said, I think this was kind of hard to do, in my opinion, because there's a lot of unknowns with the backfields of these teams. Now, the only one that I really don't have any questions on is the Chiefs, because of Isaiah Pacheco. But, the Chargers, they got Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins now. They drafted a running back. Isaiah Spiller you still have there as well. With the Raiders, Zamir White's going to be taking over for Josh Jacobs, and they also brought in Alexander Mattison, who wasn't very good last year with the Vikings. And then with the Broncos, there's some talks about, if they cut Javonte Williams maybe. You got Jaleel McLaughlin, you got who made some plays for them last year, and you also have Samaje Perine. So I mean, it's tough. It's tough. Like I liked what I saw from Zamir White last year when he filled in for Josh Jacobs. He had some pretty good games against the Chiefs. Had over 140 yards rushing, which still haunts me to this day. Which I bring up once in a while. It's hard. This one was very hard. Now, I think Isaiah Pacheco and the Chiefs, they should be at 1. But, with the Chargers, I could maybe see, J.K. and Gus Edwards, I put them at 2. Because, Harbaugh wants to run the football. And, they drafted Joe Alt, not only to protect Justin Herbert, but also to, help out in the running game as well. I really don't know. I really don't know what to expect. Javonte Williams, he got hurt. Not last year, but the year before that. So he was still kind of working his way back from injury. So maybe, if the Broncos don't cut him, maybe we see the Javonte Williams we saw from, before the injury. And how is Zamir White going to do over the course of a full season? With the Raiders, I mean, they're going to want to run the football, I'm sure. But you got a lot of playmakers. You got Devontae Adams, you got Jacoby Myers, you drafted Brock Bowers. There's guys you want to throw the ball to. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. And then with the Broncos, you got a rookie quarterback that you might be starting week 1. I mean, it's either going to be him or Jared Stidham. Because right now, it seems like Zach Wilson, he's, either going to be the third string or he's just going to be off the team because he has not been taking first-team reps. So, I mean, I guess, I mean, I probably still, it's hard. But I'm going to say, I probably lean towards... I'm going to say I'm going to have the Broncos last at the moment. I'm going to put them last because I don't know, like, is Javonte Williams not going to be on the team? Are they going to cut him? Is he going to stay? Samaje Perine, he was a good player with the Bengals, but, really didn't do that much last year for the Broncos. Julian McLaughlin looked good. I mean, it's a possibility he could take over and be that number one back. So, right now, that combined with, I just don't think the Broncos are going to be very good. And I don't really know what to expect, out of Bo Nix. I mean, is Jared Stidham going to start week 1? I mean, I'm leaning towards that's going to be what's going to end up happening. But who knows? So I'm going to have the Broncos backfield ranked last right now. Raiders I'll have at 3. I'm going to say Zamir White does play well for them and shows that he is the lead back. Because, again, had some good games for them. I mean, had over 140 yards against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Like, that gets my attention. Can he do that again? We'll see when they play each other on Black Friday this year. So, I'll say they're at 3. But also, I mean, Alexander Mattison last year, I mean, maybe in a role where he's, part of a committee, that might be better for him. Because as the lead back, he was not good. He was not good. And then, like I said the Chargers at 2 just because I feel like with Harbaugh, they're going to find success running the football. And, Justin Herbert is going to play week 1. Right now, he's on track to play week 1. So, I mean, and with Herbert, I mean, they're going to be throwing the ball too. Yeah, I don't know. But then, like, you talk about the Chiefs, and you're like, well, I mean, the Chiefs are going to be throwing it a bunch of times. But I know what I'm getting at Isaiah Pacheco. The guys that the Chargers brought in from the Ravens have injury histories. Although Gus Edwards did have a good year last year, but J.K. Dobbins keeps getting hurt. It's just there's a lot of question marks with these backfields. So I just don't know. But I just know I know what I'm getting out of Isaiah Pacheco. So, and Gus Edwards was just a monster in the red zone last year for the Chargers. So, I'd put them at 2. It's just it's the Broncos are in a transition period. The Raiders, I just feel like we also got to see who the Raiders are going to be starting at quarterback too. With Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. So, I mean, we know one thing. That the Chiefs are the favorites to win this division. But, yeah, I think that's how I would have it right now. The Broncos at 4, Raiders 3, Chargers at 2, and then the Chiefs backfield at 1 with Pacheco. And Pacheco had a really good year for the Chiefs last year. But yeah, I did go through it because with Javonte Williams, so we'll go through them. So Javonte Williams last year, I think he had around 770 rushing yards when I was looking at his stats last night. Yeah, 774 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 217 carries. So those were his stats from last year. Zamir White last year, he had 451 carries and a touchdown. And like I said, he had 145 yards against the Chiefs last year. He had 112 against the Broncos the final week of the regular season. Yeah, I mean, when he got his opportunities, I mean, he took advantage of it. 71 yards against the Colts in Week 17, 69 yards against the Chargers and a touchdown. When they blew them out, they won 63-21. So, and he's 24 years old. We'll see. And then for Gus Edwards, looking at his stats, he had 810 yards rushing and 13 touchdowns on 198 carries. Chargers are going to use him a lot in the red zone. So, and if J.K. Dobbins, I mean, I don't really know what to expect from him just because he's dealt with major injuries in his short career. Gus Edwards is going to be the lead back. So, and like I said, I know what I'm getting out of Isaiah Pacheco. Last year, 935 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns, 205 carries. Also in the receiving game, if I can get to his receiving stats, so he had 244 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. So yeah, that's how I would do the rankings. I mean, the Raiders and the Broncos, you could probably change them if you want. I mean, maybe because the Broncos got a rookie quarterback, they're going to put more of an emphasis on the running game. I don't know. Only time will tell. It's just it's hard. So yeah, I would say Chiefs 1, Chargers 2, Raiders, Broncos are 3 and 4. That's how I would rank it. Probably lean towards the Raiders, just because I liked what I saw from Zamir White last year. But we'll see. But those are the running back rankings. So we'll go back to the NFC East, and we will rank the receivers starting tomorrow. So that's what we'll do. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about the rankings that I had for the running backs. Let me know in the comments. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows on the network. Give everybody shows some love as well. We got shows going on throughout the day, so make sure to check them out. Got a full slate of preseason games starting this week, Thursday through Sunday. So, that'll give us some stuff to talk about. And, so with that, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't